sustainable supply of priority equipment to Ukraine. We also remain committed to providing political and military support to Ukraine. The European Peace Facility, as well as the newly launched EU Military Assistance Mission, are key tools in this respect. Ukraine's financial relief, resilience and long-term reconstruction will further be addressed by leaders. I would like to thank the European Parliament for your support and efforts to reach a timely solution on the MFA Plus assistance file. Leaders are also expected to speak about how to further increase collective pressure on Russia to end its war of aggression and to withdraw its troops from Ukraine. They will welcome the reinforcement of the EU's restrictive measures, including through the oil price cap. Leaders are also expected to speak about how to further increase collective pressure on Russia to end its war of aggression and to I missed the paragraph. They will welcome the reinforcement of the EU restrictive measures, including through the oil price cap. The aim is to have the new sanction package formally adopted ahead of the European Council, likely via written procedure. On energy and economy, the European Council will review progress in the implementation of its October conclusions. Steep energy prices touch all European citizens and businesses, and the issue has been very high on the agenda of the Czech presidency of the Council. Leaders will continue to work on a coordinated approach to weather this crisis and minimise the social and economic fallout. They will discuss the impact of high energy prices and global developments on our industrial fabric and consider what should be done to maintain our global competitiveness and develop our technological leadership in the green transition whilst preserving the global level playing field. Leaders will also take stock of progress on the latest energy measures proposed by the Commission and address the next steps. We need to make sure we continue to deal with the most immediate aspects of the current energy crisis, but also prepare for next winter and develop together a resilient system for the coming years. We must phase out our dependency on Russian energy exports, accelerate the green transition and ensure security of supply, which will require stepping up investment in infrastructure and interconnections, innovation, renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. Turning to security and defence, leaders will follow up on their discussions in March and May, taking stock and providing further guidance on the implementation of the strategic compass and the Versailles Declaration. The EU is taking more responsibility for its own security and its capacity to act autonomously in defence matters. This includes strengthening the European defence and industrial base. Of course, the transatlantic bond, as reflected in the EU strategic compass and the NATO strategic concept, remains key. The European Council is expected to call on the Council and the European Parliament to swiftly adopt the European Defence Industry Enforcement through Common Procurement Act. The Council already adopted its position in early December under the lead of the Czech presidency. Regarding the EU's commitment to work with partners on security and defence, the European Council should underline the importance of instruments such as the European Peace Facility and is expected to welcome the agreement of the Council to increase EPF's overall financial ceiling by €2 billion in 2023. The European Council will hold a strategic discussion on relations with the southern neighbourhood. Leaders are also expected to have a strategic discussion on transatlantic relations. On the 6th of December, the Western Balkans summit took place in Tirana. EU leaders and Western Balkans partners reconfirmed our strategic partnership. The Tirana Declaration reaffirms the EU's unequivocal support for the EU perspective of the Western Balkans. Yesterday, the Council adopted conclusions on the enlargement process, which the European Council is expected to endorse. As you can see, a very rich agenda. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Minister, thank you for all your work these past 6 months. I now give the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Thank you very much, President, dear Roberta. Minister, honourable members, it's exactly 3 years ago that I stood here in front of the Parliament presenting the European Green Deal. Europe was the first continent to set out a path towards climate neutrality. Other countries had pledges, we had a plan. Back then, we were concerned for our industry because of the unfair competition of heavy polluters. Today, only 3 years later, the competition we face has radically changed. A global green tech race has started. That is what we wanted, that is what we need, because only when the most advanced economies compete for a net zero future will we reach our common goals to limit global warming and to protect our children's future. But this new competition environment also calls for a rethink on our side on how we support our industry's green transition and strengthen its global leadership. And that is what we will discuss tomorrow at the European Council, and this is what I would like to focus on today. Let me first look at the challenging situation our companies are facing today. Global gas supply remains tight because of Russia's war of aggression. Russia has cut 80% of its pipeline gas supply to the European Union in the last 8 months. But we have been able to compensate. We have diversified, we are saving energy, we have boosted the rollout of renewables, we are skimming off the super profits of companies, energy-producing companies, to take the money to support vulnerable households and vulnerable businesses. We agreed to buy gas together, and we put forward a market correction mechanism to limit the spikes in gas prices. Our storages are filled, so we are, as a result, safe for the winter. I think we can be very proud of what we've achieved despite the Russian blackmail, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Czech presidency for what you have achieved in the last 6 months. This is great, and thank you very much for that. Yet, indeed, you deserve an applause. Yet, all this what we've done comes at a cost. Cheap supplies of Russian energy were part of the business model of many European industries. That model has been shattered by Russia's attack on Ukraine. And the inconvenient truth is that model will not come back. The International Energy Agency has just reminded us that in the absence of Russian gas, Europe now faces structurally higher fossil fuel import prices. So the only sustainable way for our SMEs and our industries is the transition to renewable energy. Renewable energy is not only affordable, but it's of course also homegrown, and it creates good jobs here in Europe. But this transition will not happen overnight, and global competition is getting tougher. Just look at the United States. They have recently approved a significant investment plan, which also sets standards for green tech sectors, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. And let us be very clear, first of all, supporting the clean transition is the right thing to do, if you do it right, in a transparent manner, in a spirit of cooperation, and in a way that ensures a level playing field. So it should be a race against time and not a race against each other. It should be a race to the top and not a race to the bottom. Yet there is a risk that the Inflation Reduction Act can lead to unfair competition. And three aspects are particularly worrisome. First of all, the Buy American logic that underpins large parts of the IRA. Second, the tax breaks that could lead to discrimination. And third, the production subsidies that could disadvantage European companies. We need to address these issues. We need to give our answer, our European IRA. And I see four main strands of action. First of all, we have to adjust our own rules to facilitate national public investment in the transition. Second, we have to reassess the need of further European public investment in the transition. Third point, we have to work with the United States to address some of the most concerning aspects of this law. And of course, the fourth topic is we have to further accelerate our transition to green energy. So to my first point, we need to nurture the further future generation of industrial production, our own green tech industrial basis. This one we have to strengthen. And we need to make sure that investment aid and tax credits reach the concerned sectors more easily and faster. And this is why we will in January put forward a new framework to accelerate the transition. It will make our state aid rules simpler and faster for the years to come. And it will close the existing gap to target the whole value chain of strategic green sectors, including large-scale deployment and the access to raw materials. This new framework will, for example, allow member states to take into account global conditions, not only the European ones, but the global conditions, when providing aid for certain green tech manufacturing products. That means for some greenfield investments, member states can match the subsidies of third countries. And this will give an incentive to companies to continue to invest in the European Union, not to invest in the United States, but to be here, to stay here, and to invest in the European Union. At the same time, we have to protect our single market from fragmentation and uncoordinated responses, so our unity as a single market as 27. And we all know not all member states have the same capacity for large-scale investments in strategic sectors, the famous deep pockets. They are not everywhere. And this leads me to my second point. We need a fair green transition in all of Europe. So to foster green tech across Europe, we need complementary European funding. And here, Repower EU is our tool. Repower EU is the vehicle that supports SMEs and industries while they transition towards cheaper and cleaner energy. And in this context, I really want to congratulate you, and I'm very glad that Repower EU has been adopted this morning, so late this night, and it enters into force beginning next year. This is a big step forward. Many, many thanks to that. This is an enormous achievement here in the Parliament. It's good that we have Repower EU now. I think at the same time, the need for acceleration for the renewables will also require a boost of Repower EU so that we can properly address the new circumstances that have been created through the IRA. This is for the short term. In the medium term, however, I think we need a more structural solution, because we want European industry to keep leading in the green transition. And this is why I introduced the idea of a sovereignty fund. And I think the upcoming midterm review of the MFF around summer will be a good opportunity to put forward our proposal in more detail. The idea behind it is very simple. Europe is a continent full of strength, Our single market is unique. We have the largest single market worldwide. We have a highly skilled workforce. We have world-class universities. We have a tightly woven network of renowned research institutions. But we also need to galvanize our strong European industrial power in the global fight against climate change. And that calls for a common European industrial policy with common European funding. I am speaking of beefing up the resources available for upstream research, innovation and strategic projects at EU level. Just think of hydrogen, semiconductors, quantum computing, AI, biotechnologies. That's where we have to do the investments now. And for the first time, we will also bring European funding to our successful important projects of common European interest, the abbreviation IPCEIs or IPCEIs as some say. These are strategic investments to maintain our global leadership in the green tech sector. My third point. We are working very closely with the Biden administration on the most concerning aspects of the IRA, and we are discussing how to jointly strengthen our clean energy and industry bases. And we need to make sure in these discussions that our respective incentive programs will be reinforcing each other and that they do not come at the expense of each other. Think, for example, at the topic of critical raw materials that are needed for the green tech. Today, the production and the processing, and we know all that, of some of the most urgently needed critical raw materials are controlled by one single country, and that country is China. So we share the US concern about the strategic vulnerability that we do have. And one of the possible solutions to overcome this monopoly that China has, without any doubt, would be, for example, to create a raw materials club with the United States and with other partners, with the aim to have reliability, transparency, fair conditions, value that stays in the country where these raw materials are being extracted, and we stand ready to work on all this hard to achieve this kind of joining forces and strengthen our industrial basis. Finally, let us recall, all these actions serve for a bridge. It is the bridge for our clean tech industry to transform from today's costly fossil fuel energy into the clean energy and affordable energy, the renewables. We need, therefore, this investment now, because these industries and our SMEs need the support now, till we have achieved an energy environment again that is affordable, that is clean, and that is secure. Honourable members, let us never forget the bigger picture. A war is raging at the borders of our union. Russia is escalating its attacks against civilian and civilian infrastructure, and the brave people of Ukraine need all our help. Therefore, it is not the time for a trade war with our closest partners and allies. This is the time for our democracies to join forces even more, to stand up for Ukraine. I'm very glad that we have agreed now for the next round of our 18 billion euros financial package, which will reach Ukraine early January. Putin's war of aggression will fail mainly for two reasons. The first one is, of course, the enormous bravery and the enormous courage of the Ukrainian people. But the second reason is the international community's remarkable unity. And therefore, let us stay strong. Let us stand up for Ukraine. Let us be united. Slava Ukraini, Merry Christmas, and long live Europe.
Thank you very much to the Commission President. I give the floor now to the Chair of the EPP Group, Manfred Weber.
Madam President of Parliament, Madam President of the Commission, Mr. Beck, dear colleagues, today's subject is the preparation of the European Council, but before we go into this, as an institution, I think we all are still under shock about the corruption cases. Yesterday we voted nearly unanimously that Vice President Kylie cannot speak anymore on behalf of the institution. That is why we show that we are ready to act. We will protect our institution. 99% of all colleagues here in this institution want to continue to work hard for the European citizens. We want to clean the table and we want to reform our working methods, and we will bring this alive in the next upcoming weeks and months. But on the other hand, we must do our job, and that is what we are doing today, is the preparation of the Council. The European Parliament was fighting hard for one fundamental idea, and that was the idea of conditionality when it was about the funding of the European Union. The rule of law mechanism is our baby, it's Parliament's baby. We achieved this. And that in the last days, that yesterday the Council first time agreed to block and to freeze money to Hungary is an historic moment. That we use the first time money as a tool to insist that rule of law must be implemented in European Union. Viktor Orban will face problems now. That's obvious and that is good. I want to underline this because, first of all, institutions on European level are on the same page. We are united and the European Parliament did it. I think we can be proud about this. And we will continue to fight for values. I want to mention today an international perspective. On the 13th of September, a 22-year-old Masha Amini was arrested in the Iranian morality police for improperly wearing her headscarf. 3 days later, she died. On the 17th of November, the 23-year-old Mayra Reza Ranavard was arrested. On Monday, he was hanged from a crane in the city of Mashhad. 14 young people died now in the last weeks in Iran. Their only fault is their desire for freedom. This is the Iranian reality. We condemn the brutal killing of all these young people and all the people who fight for freedom. And here in the European Parliament we must show our support. And I think we can consider, Madam President, that probably for the January plenary we should also invite representatives from the Iranian opposition to this House to support them. And when we look to inside of the European Union, then it's about competitiveness, it's about jobs, it's about perspective for our business, and we welcome this dimension. We support the ideas presented today by the Commission President on the ERA. That is a good answer. We don't need a war, a trade war with the American friends. We need our solid answer with a position of strength, not being naive, but being strong. We have to strengthen our single market. For example, in the telecom sector, there is still a lot to do. And we need the main message of how can we strengthen competitiveness. And there we are looking forward for the Swedish presidency to come. I want to mention also the defense sector again, because our countries are spending now hundreds of billions of euros to buy weapons, and that is good that we are investing in our defence capacity in Europe. But Poland is buying the tanks in South America and South Korea. Germany is buying the air fighters in the US. A lot of jobs are created now, but outside of the European Union, because we are lacking a single market on defence industry inside of the European Union. And I don't see initiatives on this. I don't see engagement on this. I was mentioning this already several times here in this place. So we have to speed up to build up a real European defence pillar with also a cyber defence brigade, a real European defence pillar inside of the NATO. And for the European Council, I think migration and linked to Schengen is also an issue to be discussed. Since 2015 we are discussing migration, and I want to applaud and want to thank the Czech presidency for all what they did to achieve now a solid position for the negotiation with the Parliament on the migration pact. A big achievement. Thank you so much for this. And the urgency is obvious. 280,000 illegal migrants arrived during this year in the European Union. The reception centres are again full. That's why we have to speed up on this legislation, and we have to finalise it in the next upcoming month. And the Schengen enlargement must also be an issue in this regard. The veto from Austria and from the Netherlands was wrong and was not fact-based. And that's why I hope that this is also coming again on the negotiation table now in Brussels tomorrow and on Friday. We need fairness. Romanians and Bulgarians deserve the same treatment than all the other Europeans have. That's why the enlargement must come. And finally, on the energy side, Madam President, you know I was several times insisting here, why have you used the Article 122 for doing the energy proposals? I tell you, for our legislation where the Parliament is involved, the REPowerEU, we finalised now the legislation, and for the gas cap and for other proposals you made in an urgency procedure, we are still lacking any kind of progress. We see no progress at all on the Council side. That's why next time please involve again the European Parliament at the place where the democratic decisions must take place. So that is my first message. But on content, Council must speed up. Council must now deliver on the gas cap decisions. Putin is responsible for the high price, but we could much better answer this threat from the Russian side if we were united. That's why, Mr. Beck and Prime Minister Fiala, good luck for the negotiations to solve this last problem. Thank you so much. I wish you good luck for the Council and for all of us, peaceful Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manfred. And now the chair of the S&D Group, Irache Garcia Perez. Irache, you have the floor.
Estimada presidenta, comisarios, señorías, nos encontramos a las puertas del último Consejo de este año con tal abanico de retos encima de la mesa que se nos demanda celeridad, tesón y contundencia en la toma de decisiones. La credibilidad de nuestro proyecto europeo nos exige que ni un ápice de duda pueda resquebrajar la confianza de la ciudadanía en sus instituciones, porque debemos seguir siendo un modelo para la ciudadanía de la Unión y también referentes en el mundo, como hacemos con el Premio Sájarov. Hemos de ser un modelo creíble y honrado en todas nuestras acciones, también a nivel institucional y en la dimensión socioeconómica. Empiezo con esta última. He hecho referencia en varias ocasiones a la urgencia en atajar los precios desorbitados en el mercado de la energía por culpa de la guerra de Putin. La Comisión presentó una serie de medidas de forma tan urgente que, aplicando el artículo 122, se excluyó al Parlamento en su negociación. La propuesta de la Comisión para limitar el precio del gas en el mercado es ridícula. Si se hubiera seguido un procedimiento legislativo habitual, el Parlamento hubiera podido proponer límites realistas y efectivos. Colegas, como ya dije, si este Parlamento actuó rápidamente con las vacunas de la COVID, ¿no vamos a hacerlo ahora para poder afrontar esta crisis energética? Y es que la rapidez de acción nos apremia en una crisis social y económica galopante. No podemos esperar más. La ausencia de medidas sociales ambiciosas en el paquete legislativo para los años 2023-2024 es exasperante. Por eso, desde el Grupo de Socialistas y Demócratas, hemos propuesto un bono energético europeo, identificando más de 100.000 millones de euros en el presupuesto europeo que pueden ser utilizados para ayudar de manera urgente a las familias de forma inmediata. Pero también para el próximo año, seamos claros, continuaremos necesitando una respuesta europea para hacer frente a la crisis. Respecto al marco institucional, hay dos cuestiones esenciales para mi grupo político: Schengen y la condicionalidad del Estado de Derecho. Sobre la primera cuestión, miren, celebro, por supuesto, la inclusión de Croacia en el espacio Schengen. Es positivo. Pero no hacerlo, además, con Rumanía y Bulgaria es un error. Un error y una injusticia, que además una injusticia que despierta recelos y da coba a los movimientos antieuropeístas. Mi grupo propuso un debate sobre esta cuestión. Colegas, ¿cómo podemos mantener un debate sobre la ampliación de la Unión Europea y, en paralelo, fracasar en la inclusión en el espacio libre y común de Estados miembros que cumplen los requisitos para formar parte de ello? ¿Qué va a hacer la Comisión para corregir esta injusticia? Cuenta con nuestro apoyo para trabajar en esa dirección. Y, en último lugar, con respecto a la condicionalidad del Estado de Derecho, por supuesto, ha sido una victoria de los que defendemos el Estado de Derecho y los valores comunes de la Unión el que pueda aplicarse el mecanismo de condicionalidad y que se puedan plantear reducir y congelar los fondos a aquellos países, en este caso a Hungría, cuando no está cumpliendo con el Estado de Derecho. Pero también reflexionemos algo. Lo que está haciendo hoy Orbán, planteando un chantaje en el Consejo, no puede ser permitido y eso nos debe de hacer reflexionar en la necesidad de acabar con el principio de unanimidad en el Consejo. Las instituciones y el marco que hemos venido construyendo son nuestro patrimonio común y la confianza de la ciudadanía en ellas es la garante de poder seguir construyendo este proyecto común de paz, de libertad y de bienestar. Y lo debemos preservar. Volviendo al inicio de mi intervención, ante cualquier ataque que debilite la confianza de la ciudadanía en la Unión Europea, debe de ser atacado con nuestro Estado de Derecho, con los valores de nuestra Unión y, por lo tanto, firmeza y tolerancia cero para cualquier caso de corrupción. Queridos compañeros y compañeras, os deseo un feliz final de año y espero que el próximo año estemos con las mismas energías para abordar todo el trabajo que tenemos por delante. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Irache. And now the President of the Renew Europe Group, Stéphane Séjourné. Stéphane.
Merci Madame la Présidente, chers collègues. L'agenda de ce Conseil européen est moins chargé que prévu et c'est une bonne chose et une bonne nouvelle. Les accords d'hier et d'avant-hier sont des excellentes nouvelles. Je me permets de souligner que ce Parlement européen, notre groupe en particulier, Renew Europe, y sont pour beaucoup. Déjà sur la Hongrie. C'est historique. Le mécanisme de conditionnalité était une demande de mon groupe. Son activation par la Commission et son adoption par le Conseil ont été possibles grâce à la pression de ce Parlement européen. Alors, Monsieur Weber, vous disiez que ce mécanisme de solidarité et de conditionnalité était le bébé de ce Parlement européen. C'était avant tout peut-être le bébé d'un certain nombre de groupes politiques qui ont poussé cette démarche, mais nous le partageons volontiers aujourd'hui avec l'ensemble de ce Parlement. Le taux minimum de taxes sur les multinationales, comme la taxe carbone aux frontières, bientôt sera une réalité conforme aux souhaits également de cette Assemblée. On doit s'en féliciter. Mais bien sûr, ces dernières semaines ont aussi démontré que les vétos pourrissent la vie démocratique européenne. L'absurde décision de retarder l'entrée de la Roumanie et de la Bulgarie dans Schengen, l'incompréhensible attente des mesures sur le prix du gaz, les très inquiétants retards sur les sanctions russes, tout cela devrait décider le Conseil à écouter ce que nous clamons depuis des mois et des mois, mettez fin à l'unanimité, passez à la majorité qualifiée, écoutez les citoyens sur la conférence sur l'avenir de l'Europe, ce sont des mots que vous avez entendus, Madame la Présidente, messieurs les représentants du Conseil dans cet hémicycle, souvent, et je pense que nous devions aller plus loin sur cette question. C'est une question d'efficacité, de modernisation de nos institutions, qui sont d'autant plus nécessaires que les défis gigantesques que nous devons faire face devant nous sont énormes. Les décisions de nos amis américains, de nos adversaires chinois mettent en péril notre tissu économique. C'est une question majeure de souveraineté. Sans tissu productif sain, le Green Deal est menacé, la cohésion sociale est en danger. C'est aussi une question d'unité, et vous l'avez dit, Madame la Présidente, assez justement, les asymétries des réponses nationales posent un vrai risque de fragmentation. C'est un danger pour le marché unique, et je demande à la Commission, mais vous avez fait quelques annonces, mais surtout aux chefs d'État et de gouvernement de soutenir ces trois idées. D'abord, le Fonds européen, vous en avez parlé, pour que nous produisions plus sur notre sol, comme les énergies renouvelables et propres et des biens essentiels, un test de souveraineté pour garantir qu'aucune législation européenne ne nuise à nos objectifs sur ce domaine-là. C'est ce que nous faisons déjà, d'ailleurs, sur le volet environnemental et sur le volet du Green Deal. Une loi, peut-être, de souveraineté pour libérer les énergies, notre continent. Nos règles entravent nos entreprises, nos PME, les délais de permis, les démarches interminables et inutilement complexes que nous vivons dans nos pays respectifs. 3 ans pour un projet européen sur l'hydrogène. Il faudrait à minima 3 mois. Les entreprises ne demandent qu'à produire, qu'à créer des emplois. Ce sont les forces vives de notre continent et nous en avons besoin pour être la puissance économique de demain. Voilà, Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Ministre, je sais qu'une crise chasse l'autre, qu'après le Covid, La guerre, l'énergie, c'est désormais l'industrie qui est en haut de la pile de nos priorités. Nous n'avons pas le temps de repousser nos décisions. Nous devons innover politiquement pour bien négocier ce tournant économique du Made in Europe. Je vous souhaite à tous également de bonnes fêtes, un joyeux Noël, et nous espérons que, en tout cas, ce Conseil sera productif pour notre économie, pour nos citoyens et pour protéger nos citoyens européens de ces crises. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Stéphane. I give the floor now to the co-chair of the Green Group, Philippe Lambert.
Good morning, everyone. This time I think I'm going to speak English because I want first to thank Mr. Beck and congratulate the Czech presidency. It's the second time that your country is leading the work of the European Union for 6 months. And I must say that you have already brought quite a number of important pieces of legislation across the line and also helped, well, not solving because it's not solved, but at least moving forward on the conundrum posed by the Hungarian government. Because indeed a few weeks ago I was afraid that indeed the Council would succumb to the blackmail of Viktor Orban, and this was not the case. And actually, in a subtle way, you reminded Viktor Orban that we can circumvent his vetoes. And of course, we didn't have to go there, but the threat was enough for him to basically bow. And indeed, the funds put on hold have been reduced, but not by a significant margin. Et je voudrais juste dire à Stéphane Séjourné, qui a un art consommé de tirer la couverture à lui, que dans l'affaire hongroise, le président Macron n'était pas du côté de la rigueur. Il était de ceux du côté qui voulaient lâcher la bride à Viktor Orban, et je pense qu'il faut aussi mettre à jour ce double langage. Now, I'd like to focus a bit on what you said, Mrs. President, because there's a lot I agree with on what you say, starting with the point that no, we Greens do not dream of a continent, a European Union deprived of industry. I'm an engineer by training. I think industry is a key part of our economy. But then again, everything will be in the execution and in the details. Because what I hear from industry oftentimes is not too much pressure, please. Not too much pressure. And please, a lot of subsidies. Why is that? Well, because, to be honest, when I look especially at large European companies, I see that we have moved from a capitalism of entrepreneurs to a capitalism of rent seekers. And they prefer to channel profits into bonus and dividends rather than in productive investment, because these will generate profits down the line. And this is why we are saying, in order for European industry to lead the transition, we need to put them under pressure, and that's the targets that we adopt. That's the whole Fit for 55 package. We need serious pressure, and that includes the nature protection package. Because yes, if you want innovation, you need pressure. And then if support is needed, I would just echo what you have said about support to the citizens who have high energy bills. Support must be targeted. Targeted to the companies who really need it, who really need public support to bridge the transition, because yes, transition is difficult and requires investment. But quite frankly, we have deep pockets in some member states, we have very deep pockets in some corporations as well. And they don't need a cent of support. And so that's what I would urge you, is to find the right balance. But all in all, when I look at the architecture, your 4 points, I think that we can agree with that. So with that, I wish you also a good Christmas recess and looking forward to continue working with you. Thank you.
Merci, Philippe. Now, on behalf of the ID Group, Jordan Bardella, for 1 minute et demie.
Merci Madame la Présidente du Parlement européen, Madame la Présidente de la Commission européenne, Mesdames, Messieurs les représentants du Conseil, mes chers collègues. Il ne fait pas bon, en ces temps, d'être une entreprise européenne. Non seulement nos entreprises subissent l'infernale hausse des prix de l'énergie à laquelle vous n'offrez aucune solution pérenne, mais elles font maintenant face à un protectionnisme américain qui s'assume sans aucune fausse pudeur. À l'approche du Conseil européen, voilà en effet un nouveau sujet d'inquiétude pour nos entreprises, l'Inflation Reduction Act, décidé par le président américain Joe Biden. Sous couvert de lutte contre le dérèglement climatique, cette loi favorise Les entreprises américaines à grands coups de subventions, de crédits d'impôt, que ce soit dans les domaines des panneaux photovoltaïques, de la voiture électrique ou encore des batteries. Stupeur chez les élites européistes qui croyaient encore au verset de la religion libérale et au bréviaire de l'Organisation mondiale du commerce. Les bras ballants, les yeux écarquillés, vous semblez enfin découvrir que toutes les grandes puissances du monde promeuvent leur entreprise, protègent leurs travailleurs et défendent leurs intérêts. Toutes, sauf une, l'Union européenne, qui se veut systématiquement la meilleure élève du libre-échange et systématiquement à ses dépens. Nous sommes le seul continent à ouvrir à ce point ses marchés publics, sans réciprocité, là où les Américains achètent américains et les Chinois achètent chinois. Nous sommes les seuls à ouvrir à ce point nos frontières à des produits qui ne respectent aucune de nos normes, qu'elles soient sociales ou environnementales. Plutôt que d'être les éternels naïfs du commerce planétaire, qu'attendons-nous, nous, Européens, pour acheter européen? Qu'attendons-nous pour protéger les normes sociales issues de nos démocraties en évitant toute concurrence avec des pays qui font peu de cas des droits des travailleurs? Qu'attendons-nous pour définir et défendre nos intérêts stratégiques, pour bâtir une politique ambitieuse de croissance et pour protéger nos producteurs, nos consommateurs, nos salariés? Les Européens n'ont pas fait l'Europe pour subir, mais pour agir. Réveillons-nous. Je vous remercie et je vous souhaite à tous, mes chers collègues, un très joyeux Noël.
Merci Jordan. Now I give the floor on behalf of the ECR group to Beata Szydło for 1 minute and a half.
Pani Przewodnicząca, Szanowna Pani Przewodnicząca Komisji, Szanowni Państwo. Słuchając dzisiaj niektórych z Państwa, mam wrażenie, że żyjemy w alternatywnej rzeczywistości, ponieważ to wszystko, o czym Państwo tutaj mówicie, jak gdyby jest postawione w takiej sytuacji, gdyby nie było w Europie wojny. Ta wojna ciągle jest. Ta wojna jest za naszymi granicami, bezpośrednio za granicą Unii Europejskiej. Ukraina dzielnie się broni, ale potrzebuje wsparcia. Ja wiem, że są tacy politycy w Europie, którzy już zaczynają myśleć o innej rzeczywistości i tak jak chociażby prezydent Francji domagają się gwarancji dla Rosji. Warto by było zapytać na Radzie Europejskiej, co pan prezydent Macron miał na myśli. Naszym obowiązkiem jest wspierać Ukrainę, ale naszym obowiązkiem jest również myśleć, co zrobić, żeby uchronić państwa Unii Europejskiej, Europejczyków przed kosztami tej strasznej wojny i zadbać o ich bezpieczeństwo, również o bezpieczeństwo energetyczne. Pani Przewodnicząca rozpoczęła swoją wypowiedź od refleksji sprzed 3 lat, kiedy zachwalała Zielony Ład i mówiła, że to jest szansa dla Europy. Dzisiaj można zastanowić się, jakie są koszty tego Zielonego Ładu. Narzekają przedsiębiorcy, wysokie ceny energii dla Europejczyków, a my ciągle słyszymy o przyspieszaniu transformacji. Czas zacząć myśleć pragmatycznie. Dzisiaj Europa jest w poważnym kryzysie ze względu na wojnę na Ukrainie. I naszym obowiązkiem jest bronić przede wszystkim bezpieczeństwa i chronić Europejczyków przed ubóstwem. Tak, trzeba przeprowadzić transformację energetyczną, żeby nie popełnić takich błędów, jak również i Komisja, i Parlament przed laty. Właśnie między innymi 3 lata temu, kiedy pani przewodnicząca mówiła o Zielonym Ładzie. Przecież wtedy państwo popieraliście i Nord Stream 2 i wspieraliście Rosję w tym, ażeby dominowała ona na rynku paliw i energetyki w Unii Europejskiej. Z tego trzeba wyciągnąć wnioski, ale trzeba to robić rozsądnie, myśląc przede wszystkim o Europejczykach. Ja dołączam się również do życzeń dla wszystkich państwa i chcę przypomnieć, że będziemy cieszyć się świętami Bożego Narodzenia. Dziękuję bardzo.
I give the floor next to the chair of the left group, Martin Schödemann.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin. Im Winter des Jahres 2020 konnten über 35 Millionen Europäerinnen in der EU ihren Strom oder ihre Heizung nicht bezahlen. Und diesen Winter werden es viele Millionen Menschen mehr sein. Und noch immer streiten sich leider die Staats- und Regierungschefinnen und Chefs darum, wie wirklich wirksame Maßnahmen ergriffen werden können, wie die aussehen können, die den Menschen in dieser für viele existenziellen Krise über den Monat helfen können. Und noch immer gibt es keine klaren Beschlüsse für einen Gaspreisdeckel, der den Menschen, dem Handwerk und den kleinen und mittelständischen Unternehmen das Leben erleichtert und die Zukunft sichert. Weil insbesondere, und das ist eine Kritik gerichtet vor allem an die deutsche Bundesregierung, weil insbesondere nationale Regierungen monatelang auf der Bremse gestanden haben und einen Ego-Trip nach dem anderen ausleben. Und viele Menschen stehen angesichts der Inflation und der damit einhergehenden Lebenshaltungskrise jeden Tag vor der Frage, ob sie heizen, das Licht anstellen oder Nahrungsmittel kaufen können. Und europäische Politik zeigt sich in dieser massiven sozialen Krise erneut zu unentschlossen, zu zögerlich und nicht entscheidungsfähig genug. Und deshalb will ich an dieser Stelle, Minister Beck, die Mitgliedstaaten unbedingt dazu ermutigen, den Vorschlag der Europäischen Kommission aufzunehmen und über ein groß angelegtes gemeinsames europäisches Investitionsprogramm, das den Weg aus der Krise ebnen könnte, nachzudenken und das anzunehmen. Und es ist Jahresende, wir gehen aufs Jahresende zu. Deshalb ein Lob mal auch in Ihre Richtung, trotz der politischen Differenzen, die wir sonst immer haben, Frau von der Leyen. Ich finde die Idee eines europäischen Souveränitätsfonds richtig. Ich glaube, die Zeit ist reif dafür. Auch insbesondere als Antwort auf den Inflation Reduction Act der Biden-Administration. Allerdings hilft es da nicht, und da endet mein Lob dann auch schon wieder, auf halber Strecke stehen zu bleiben. Dann müssen wir auch über eine gründliche Reform des Binnenmarktes nachdenken. Dann müssen wir darüber nachdenken, wie Investitionen auch in die öffentliche Daseinsvorsorge ermöglicht werden, wie die Schuldenregeln zu reformiert sein werden, dann, damit tatsächlich diese Investitionen auch möglich sind. Und da müssen wir darüber nachdenken, wie wirklich Eigenmittel generiert werden, zum Beispiel in Form einer europäischen Finanztransaktionssteuer. Eine der Ursachen für den massiven Preisanstieg liegt im Angriffskrieg Russlands gegen die Ukraine. Und dieser Krieg hält seit nunmehr 10 Monaten an. Die Zivilbevölkerung leidet unter den verbrecherischen Angriffen der russischen Armee auf die zivile Infrastruktur. Kälte, Dunkelheit, Hunger werden zu Waffen, vor allem gegen Kinder, Alte und Kranke. Und dieser elende Krieg muss endlich beendet werden. Und dafür braucht es auch eine konsequente diplomatische Offensive der Europäischen Union unter Aufsicht in Zusammenarbeit mit den Vereinten Nationen. Sollte es gemeinsame Initiativen mit China und mit Indien geben, die Russland an den Verhandlungstisch bringen. Und auf den Rückzug der russischen Truppen aus der Ukraine muss dann aber auch die Aufhebung der Sanktionen folgen. Kluge europäische Politik sucht jetzt den Weg aus der militärischen Logik hin zu einer Friedenslogik, deren Ziel am Ende natürlich auch der Ausbau und der Aufbau einer nachhaltigen europäischen Friedensordnung sein muss. Und nein, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, das Einfordern von Friedensgesprächen und Diplomatie ist keine Parteinahme für Putin und seinen verbrecherischen Angriffskrieg. Der Korruptionsskandal hat die europäischen Institutionen im Innersten erschüttert. Er ist nichts weniger als ein Schlag gegen die Glaubwürdigkeit europäischer Politik.
Herr Kollege, kommen Sie bitte zum Schluss.
Wir müssen auch Sie, werde ich sofort tun, Herr Präsident, wir müssen auch Sie bitte, Herr Beck, dafür sorgen, dass die Transparenzregeln des Europäischen Rates verstärkt werden. Die sind nämlich noch wesentlich intransparenter als die des Europäischen Parlaments. Vielen Dank, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Es ist noch ein bisschen früh, erholsame Feiertage zu wünschen, zumindest aus meiner protestantisch-kommunistischen Ethik heraus. Aber wenn es dann soweit ist, wünsche ich auch Ihnen erholsame Feiertage. Bis dann.
Herzlichen Dank. Am Wort ist nun Frau Tiziana Beghin.
Grazie Presidente. Presidente von der Leyen, io ho apprezzato molto il suo intervento e riconosco gli sforzi fatti e soprattutto condivido la sua affermazione che l'unica possibilità per contrastare la crisi energetica sia accelerare la transizione verso le rinnovabili. Tuttavia non possiamo nasconderci dietro al fatto che oggi in Europa ci sono 95 milioni di persone a rischio povertà anche a causa della crisi energetica e per costoro l'aumento del prezzo del gas non significa abbassare il termostato ma scegliere se mangiare o scaldarsi ed è per questo che ritengo che il nostro ritardo nel fissare un prezzo al tetto del gas sia veramente ingiustificabile e del prossimo Consiglio europeo deve trovare un accordo. Vorrei ricordare che a inizio 2021 il metano costava 16 euro a megawattora e questo era il valore deciso dal mercato a cui tutti i fornitori erano ben disponibili a rifornire l'Europa, non solo Gazprom. A giugno scorso si parlava di un price cap a 90 euro, per cui non capisco come la Commissione abbia pensato che fosse accettabile proporre una soglia a 2,75 e anche i 225 ora della Presidenza ceca sono troppo alti e rendono il provvedimento di fatto inutile ed inapplicabile. L'UE deve rappresentare tutti i cittadini, soprattutto quelli che non possono riscaldarsi. Deve chiedere per loro un tetto al prezzo del gas rapido ed efficace. Grazie.
Ich möchte nun Herrn Siegfried Mureşan das Wort erteilen und ihm gleichzeitig zum nächtlichen Erfolg bei den Verhandlungen gratulieren.
Dankeschön. Thank you very much, President von der Leyen, Minister, dear colleagues. Tomorrow's European Council comes at an end of a year in which we delivered together. We, the European Parliament, together with the Commission and the Council, managed to support Ukraine throughout the year, managed to keep the European Union united, and we managed to sanction the aggressor. Just in recent weeks, we managed to provide funding and herewith security for Ukraine for next year, 18 billion euros, which will allow Ukraine to pay salaries, to pay pensions, to keep schools, to keep hospitals ongoing and supporting Ukrainian people. And just this morning, we managed to agree on Repower EU, which means that we will be able to reduce our dependency on Russian fossil fuels, accelerate the transition to the green economy. We will be able to improve our energy infrastructure and our energy efficiency. But let us do more, dear colleagues. Full support, President von der Leyen, for the ideas which you expressed. Let us also act, not only react. High energy prices affect people and enterprises. It negatively affects the competitiveness of enterprises. Let's work together early next year on a competitiveness check to make sure that all legislation that we put forward at European level does not negatively affect the competitiveness of European enterprises, but it helps them and improves their competitiveness. Thank you very much.
Vielmals. Ich bitte nun Frau Elisabetta Gualmini zum Rednerpult.
Thank you, dear Minister, thank you, dear Commissioner, dear President of the European Commission, dear President of the European Parliament. We are at the end of 2022 and we can say that it has been also an annus horribilis because we faced a triple attack on democracy, an attack on democracy by Russia with the criminal invasion of Ukraine, an attack on our economy, our single market with the unacceptable blackmail on gas. And then I do not want to escape an attack on the democratic functioning and reputation of this institution by unimaginable criminal corruption. But at the same time, we have stood up, reached outstanding results. We have a more social Europe, a Europe for health, Repower EU, finally the freezing of resources for Orban and its despotic regime. So I think I really hope that the Council tomorrow will go on with the same determination, also by envisaging a revision of the MFF in the summer in the name of a permanent instrument of public support for people and for companies which are struggling with inflation. So I think that we will get stronger if we do this together. Thank you and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Danke. Das Wort hat Herr Guy Verhofstadt gebeten.
Thank you, President. The colleagues and Mr. Beck, I have listened to the long list of items that you will discuss tomorrow and after tomorrow in the Council, but I have to tell you the most important items were not there. And that is, in my opinion, the sanctions and the weapons that Ukraine needs to end this war the fastest as possible. You can all talk about price caps on oil and gas. The best way to end the energy crisis is to end the war. And for that, Ukraine needs to win the war. And there are, for the moment, what we see is that weak sanctions create weak results. It's 10 months, and what we see is an escalation of brutality of Russia in Ukraine. Rape, genocide, deportations of children in that country. So what I want and expect of the European Council is that, first of all, you start a decision to give more weapons. These discussions are patriots, about Leopards of the European governments. It's a scandal. You need to send them, to transfer them to Ukraine so that they can win the war. And the second is on the sanctions. There are still, dear colleagues, 11 oligarchs, of the most important oligarchs, not on the list of sanctions in Europe. In total, after the 9th package, and we are already on the 9th package, there will be 1,400, 500, maybe 60 people on the sanction list. And in total, there are 6,000, 7,000 people that need to be on the sanction list, because that's the real backbone. And the same from Iran.
will you discuss, in fact, now sanctions for Iran? Can we still support Iranian diplomats on the territory of Europe? Dear colleagues, we need to expel them the fastest as possible from Europe. That's what we need to do, and that is what I expect. Sanctions and weapons for Ukraine and sanctions against Iran on the next European Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Herr Kollege Rasmus Andresen, the floor is yours.
Vielen Dank. Der ukrainische Winter ist brutal und deshalb muss die wichtigste Botschaft sein, dass wir den vielen UkrainerInnen helfen, die seit Wochen bei Minusgraden ohne Strom und Wasser ausharren. Putin zerstört ganz gezielt die Energieinfrastruktur der Ukraine und die Ukraine braucht unsere Solidarität jetzt mehr denn je. Deshalb ist es gut, und da will ich mit einem Lob beginnen, dass die 18 Milliarden Euro Finanzhilfe für die Ukraine kommt. Orbáns Erpressung ist gescheitert und das ist die gute Nachricht zum Jahresende. Das demokratische Europa muss zusammenstehen. Wir brauchen mehr Möglichkeiten, um Vetos von Autokraten wie Orbán zu verhindern. Die Einstimmigkeit im Rat ist ein grundsätzliches Problem und muss überwunden werden. Wir brauchen mehr europäische Solidarität. Solidarität mit den vielen Millionen EuropäerInnen, die nicht mehr wissen, wie sie in diesem Winter ihre Rechnungen zahlen können. Wir brauchen eine europäische Gaspreisbremse, die Energiekosten für alle Menschen und für Unternehmen drosselt. Wir brauchen einen europäischen Investitionsfonds, um unsere Industrie zu stärken und grüne Zukunftsjobs zu schaffen. Wir brauchen eine europäische Antwort auf China und die USA. Es ist gut, dass die USA ihre Industrie emissionsfreier und innovativer machen wollen. Jetzt müssen wir nachlegen. Und Frau Kommissionspräsidentin von der Leyen, es ist sehr gut, dass Sie hier heute noch mal unterstrichen haben, dass Sie dazu bereit sind. Jetzt brauchen wir aber auch im Rat Bewegung. Wir brauchen Regierungschefinnen, die dazu bereit sind, mutige europäische Antworten zu formulieren und nationalistisches Klein-Klein zu überwinden. Dieser Gipfel darf nicht ergebnislos enden. Vielen Dank.
Danke vielmals. Am Wort ist Herr Madison.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. I wouldn't say this very often, but I couldn't agree more with Mr. Verhofstadt. He was absolutely right that we need sanctions against Iran and we need to deliver more and faster way weapons to Ukraine to win the war. That's the only solution for the peace, and we all want to have peace, definitely. Unfortunately, President of the Commission has left because probably this debate is too boring. But I was listening very carefully her speech. And she mentioned, of course, about the Green Deal, about the climate change, that this will be like the main focus tomorrow in the meeting of the Council. And just, I was thinking when she said that we have to take care of the raw materials, that we can't accept a situation where we are relying on one country, on China, to have raw materials, and we have to take care of this. And I was thinking, how? What will be the solution? Because, well, in the fact, most of the raw materials relying in China and in Africa. And in Africa, very many industries are owned by Chinese. We need cobalt for the batteries to drive our nice electric cars in the cities of Europe to feel very green. At the same time, most of the resources of cobalt are in Congo, and most of the resources are owned by Chinese in Congo. So how are we going to have this cobalt to drive our nice cars, to feel very green, and how are we going to solve this solution? Are we going to kick out those Chinese from Congo? Or are we just maybe like following the absolutely crazy ideology where we have only about 6% of population in the world and we are trying to save the planet? It's like the same thing like the communist ideology in the Chinese on the 60s. I think there's no big difference. Thanks so much.
Ich bitte nun Herrn Robert Roos zum Rednerpult.
Weer gaat het over energie en weer is het gerommel in de marge. Het wordt volstrekt ongeloofwaardig voor de mensen thuis. De mensen die in de kou zitten. Die mensen die de rekening niet meer kunnen betalen. De mensen die jullie klimaatideologie opdringen, waardoor we nu energietekorten hebben. In plaats van je in te zetten voor het welzijn en de veiligheid van deze mensen, wordt hier door de socialisten de grootste klimaatideologen en Hongarije-besjes smeergeld aangenomen. Nota bene afkomstig van oliedollars uit Qatar. Wat een ironie. Met de ene hand de One Love band omdoen en met de andere hand het smeergeld in de zak steken. U moet zich diep schamen. Niet het eigen belang, maar het belang van 450 miljoen EU-burgers moet voorop staan. Dus stop met de ideologie, stop met de Green Deal. Zorg dat er binnen de EU weer voldoende betrouwbare en betaalbare energie geproduceerd kan worden. Repower EU kan op dit moment alleen met meer fossiel en kernenergie. Ik wens u allen een zalige kerst. Ik dank u wel.
Danke. Unser nächster Redner ist Herr Tamás Deutsch.
Európában súlyos energiaválság van. Az energetikai szankciókkal Európa lábon lőtte önmagát. A harmadik negyedévben már 8 európai tagállamban esett vissza a GDP az előző negyedévhez képest, és 14 országban esett vissza az ipari termelés. A Német Kereskedelmi és Iparkamara felmérése szerint a német ipari szereplők 8%-a tervezi Európán kívülre áthelyezni a termelést az elviselhetetlenül magas energiaárak miatt. Az energiaválság miatt a gázár 6-szorosa a hosszú távú átlagárnak. Ursula von der Leyen szerint jövőre akár 30 milliárd köbméternyi gázhiánnyal is számolhatunk Európában. Már nem csak az okoz súlyos gondot, hogy az egekben vannak az árak, hanem az is kérdőjel, hogy lesz-e egyáltalán gáz jövőre. Az Oroszországra kivetett szankciók nem hozták el az ukrajnai háború végét, az európai emberek szegényebbek lettek, az európai nemzetgazdaságok pedig lassan térdre kényszerülnek. Elérkezett az idő, a káros szankciókat el kell törölni.
Danke, Herr Kollege. Da unsere nächste Rednerin, Frau Fitzgerald, momentan nicht im Raum ist, darf ich sofort an Herrn Jens Geier das Wort erteilen.
Danke für die Worterteilung, Herr Präsident Karas. Ich habe tatsächlich auch noch auf Herrn Fitzgerald gewartet. Deswegen habe ich jetzt einen Moment gebraucht, um zum Rednerpult zu kommen. Sehr geehrte Frau Vizepräsidentin, sehr geehrter Herr Minister Beck, verehrte Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Herr Minister Beck, Sie haben uns die Tagesordnung des kommenden Europäischen Rates vorgetragen. Dafür bedanke ich mich ganz herzlich. Es ist gut, dass der Rat alle diese drängenden Probleme anfassen will. Das ist natürlich richtig. Aber wie, und das hätte ich gern von Ihnen gehört, wie beurteilen Sie denn die Perspektiven, dass Sie sich auch einigen? Frau Präsidentin von der Leyen oder in Vertretung Frau Vizepräsidentin, ich möchte ausdrücklich Ihre Vorschläge hinsichtlich einer Überarbeitung der Regeln für die Staatsbeihilfen unterstützen. Wir befinden uns ja tatsächlich in einer Phase der grundlegenden Transformation unserer Industriegesellschaften. Und die findet einerseits unter den Bedingungen von weltweitem Wettbewerb statt und andererseits unter den Bedingungen des russischen Angriffskriegs. Bei mir zu Hause im Ruhrgebiet würden wir es so beschreiben, wir müssen der Lokomotive in voller Fahrt die Räder wechseln. Und das richtige Werkzeug dafür ist nicht eines, das nur geeignet ist, Monopole im europäischen Binnenmarkt zu verhindern. Ich unterstütze auch den Vorschlag eines Souveränitätsfonds. Wer in diesem Haus im Haushaltsausschuss sitzt, weiß, dass der EU-Haushalt gerade mal doppelt so groß ist wie der von Nordrhein-Westfalen und nicht einmal halb so groß ist wie der Haushalt der Bundesrepublik Deutschland. Und deswegen brauchen wir ein neues Instrument wie den Souveränitätsfonds. Wenn die europäische Lokomotive neue Räder braucht, dann müssen wir sie auch kaufen können. Vielen Dank.
Danke, Herr Kollege. Ich bitte unsere Kollegin Frau Sophia Innetfeld, sich auf den Weg zum Rednerpult zu machen.
Sorry, Chair, I was distracted. Thank you. Dear colleagues, I think the importance of the decision to finally apply the rule of law conditionality cannot be overestimated, and I'll be a bit out of character, but I'll pay compliments to the European Commission here for doing the right thing and sticking to its guns, and I also welcome the decision of the Council, and compliments to the Czech presidency, to largely endorse that decision. It was long overdue, because for over a decade, kleptocrats could build their empires unhindered.
but those days are over. Europe has entered a new era. This European Parliament will be very closely monitoring the full and sustainable implementation of the milestones. And finally, colleagues, I would like to state here for the record that I believe the government of my country made a strategic mistake and committed a grave injustice by blocking the Schengen accession of Bulgaria and Romania. Thank you.
Danke, Frau Kollegin. Am Wort ist nun Herr Paolo Borgia.
Grazie Presidente, Ministro, Commissari. Anche il 2022 giunge alla sua conclusione, ma purtroppo rimangono aperti tanti degli interrogativi che denunciavamo prima dell'estate. Restano in primo luogo irrisolte tante incertezze sui prezzi dell'energia ed è solo di ieri l'ultima fumata nera da parte del Consiglio straordinario energia svoltosi a Bruxelles. Io avrei voluto dire alla Presidente von der Leyen, prima che abbandonasse l'Aula a dibattito in corso, che accelerare sulla transizione energetica significa non aver capito che il problema è la tabella di marcia del Green Deal, totalmente irrealistica. La Presidente ha poi parlato di preservare il mercato interno, che va benissimo, ma è evidente che se intervengono soltanto i governi che hanno spazio fiscale, così facendo si spacca l'Europa. Troppa filosofia, troppa ideologia, poca attenzione per competitività e per difesa dei posti di lavoro. Così non si va lontano.
Danke vielmals. Das Wort gebeten hat Herr Charlie Weimers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Commissioner Vestager, Mr. Beck. The energy crisis is bad now, and it will get worse next winter. There isn't enough production, supply, nor import capacity. You progressives fought for the shutdown of nuclear power, resisted the restart of reactors, refused extraction, and restricted the use of branches, tops, and twigs from logging in bioenergy. You pushed for new, expensive climate legislation. You claimed renewables offered salvation. You refused to classify nuclear as sustainable in the EU taxonomy. How do you think it's working out? Madam President, a price cap won't make up for cemetery. It won't resolve the underlying problem, which is lack of supply. Europe needs a moratorium on new climate legislation. It needs gas drilling, the restart of nuclear, and that we stop the mindless attack on Nordic bioenergy. It's time to take a stand for people who are losing their jobs and for the pensioners in Sweden calling helplines in desperation as they cannot afford to heat their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Am Wort ist nun Herr Marton Göngösche.
Thank you, President. Dear colleagues, looking back at and evaluating year 2022, it is fair to say that it will enter our history books as the year when, after 8 decades of peace, Europe once again is engaged in an all-out war against autocratic regimes. This is the great challenge of our generation. We have to defend it at our borders in Ukraine against an authoritarian aggressor, but we also have to defend it within our ranks vis-à-vis par excellence hybrid regimes like Orban's in Hungary. The Commission and the European Parliament has acted with exemplary speed and determination in sanctioning Russia. Now, just the same way as corrupt bureaucrats or MEPs undermine the reputation of our institutions, so do authoritarian and corrupt governments of certain member states. Why the double standards then? Why do we sanction one and not the other? If you will ever have the courage to sanction the representatives of the Orban regime directly and have problems identifying the friends, relatives or cronies of Viktor Orban, then please let me know. I'll be happy to help. Thank you and Merry Christmas.
Danke. Nun hat Herr Paulo Rangel das Wort.
Obrigado, Sr. Presidente, Minister Beck, Vice President Vestager. Começo, naturalmente, por felicitar a Croácia pela sua adesão ao espaço Schengen, mas também por dizer que é uma enorme desilusão, uma enorme injustiça saber que o governo da Áustria e o governo dos Países Baixos não aceitaram a entrada da Roménia e da Bulgária no espaço Schengen, Roménia e Bulgária, que cumprem todas as condições para serem membros plenos do espaço Schengen. Espero que o Conselho Europeu trate deste assunto e o resolva em tempo útil. Para além disso, espero também que o Conselho Europeu dê o estatuto de candidato à Bósnia-Herzegovina. Será um sinal importantíssimo para este país que precisa de incentivos, será um sinal importantíssimo para os Balcãs Ocidentais. Queria também deixar aqui uma mensagem à Presidente da Comissão sobre as interconexões energéticas. Macron, Sánchez e Costa em Alicante falaram deste novo pipeline, mas ele não resolve os problemas. Não trataram da questão essencial para as renováveis na Península Ibérica, que são as interconexões elétricas nos Pirineus. Sobre isto nada se disse, sobre isto não há acordo e isto é um impasse enorme para criar de novo uma ligação energética entre a Península Ibérica e o continente europeu.
Danke. Herr Javier Moreno Sanchez, the floor is yours.
Señor presidente, señorías, son tiempos convulsos para el Parlamento Europeo, pero son sobre todo tiempos difíciles para los ciudadanos y las ciudadanas. La inflación está llevando el hambre y el frío a muchos hogares europeos. Muchas pymes no pueden pagar la factura energética y tienen que cerrar. Al mismo tiempo, las compañías energéticas siguen especulando para enriquecerse de manera escandalosa. Más que nunca, nuestros gobiernos deben gobernar para la gente. Gobernar para la gente y poner la economía al servicio de los ciudadanos y no al revés, con políticas directas para protegerles. La Unión Europea debe aprender de sus errores del pasado y, frente a la austeridad que fracasó en la crisis financiera, debe imponerse la defensa de la solidaridad y la cohesión social. Por eso hay que bajar los precios de la energía y proteger a los ciudadanos con un incremento del salario mínimo y garantizar una renta mínima para los más desfavorecidos. El Consejo Europeo de esta semana deberá adoptar medidas urgentes y los recursos financieros adecuados para ayudar a los que más lo necesitan. El frío no espera. Muchas gracias, presidente.
Herzlichen Dank auch für das Einhalten der Redezeit. Unser nächster Redner ist Herr Dacian Cioloș.
Doamnă vicepreședintă, domnule ministru, aș vrea să vă vorbesc astăzi despre un subiect care, din păcate, nu este încă pe agenda Consiliului, dar care nu văd cum poate fi evitat, pentru că a devenit un subiect politic european. E vorba de aderarea României și Bulgariei la Schengen și de veto-ul nedrept prin care Austria a blocat acest proces. Din această cauză, în România, foarte mulți oameni sunt furioși. Se vorbește despre boicotarea firmelor și produselor austriece, despre ochi pentru ochi, se inflamează discursuri naționaliste și anti-europene. Oamenii, pe bună dreptate, nu înțeleg de ce le este blocat un drept. Cred că Consiliul European poate mai mult decât să ridice din umeri sau să amâne rezolvarea acestui blocaj, care este unul eminamente politic al guvernului austriac. De aceea, aștept de la șefii de stat sau de guvern o abordare politică, o viziune despre o Europă unită, o soluție pentru rezolvarea acestui blocaj. Aș vrea să găsesc în concluziile acestui Consiliu o recunoaștere a unei realități. România îndeplinește toate condițiile de aderare la Schengen și o cale de urmat pentru a ieși din acest impas trebuie să rezulte din concluziile acestui Consiliu un impas care lovește în inima unității și solidarității europene. Și avem nevoie de solidaritate și încredere în Uniunea Europeană și nu în a inflama spirite naționaliste și anti-europene. Mulțumesc!
Danke vielmals. Das Wort hat Frau Silvia Limmer gebeten.
Das ist das Resultat ideologisch verblendeter Energiepolitik. Es ist das Ergebnis grüner Politik, sozusagen gelebter Green Deal. Frieren zu Hause, im Büro und in öffentlichen Gebäuden. Aber Energieeinsparzwang und drohende Energierationierungen sind lediglich die unmittelbaren Folgen Ihres CO2-Tunnelblicks, lächerlicher, volatiler, erneuerbarer Energien und einer Sanktionspolitik, die zuallererst uns selbst schadet. Diese Energiepolitik ist die Rückabwicklung unserer gesamten modernen Zivilisationsgeschichte. Sie ist sozusagen ihre Antithese. Und Sie, Frau von der Leyen hat offensichtlich den Rückzug in ihr vermutlich warmes Büro bereits angetreten. Also und Sie, der Europäische Rat, Ihre nicht gewählte EU-Kommission mit Legislativbefugnis und leider auch eine Mehrheit im EU-Parlament und Ihre Politik sind eine Zumutung für alle Bürger.
Herr Carlo Fidanza, Sie sind unser nächster Redner.
Grazie Presidente, Ministro, Vicepresidente. Il prossimo Consiglio europeo è chiamato a fornire risposte risolutive. Il sostegno all'Ucraina deve continuare, è l'unica premessa per una pace giusta e duratura, ma famiglie e imprese non possono permettersi ulteriori ritardi o misure inefficaci. Istituzione di un price cap e contrasto alla speculazione sul prezzo del gas, riforma del mercato dell'energia elettrica, sicurezza degli approvvigionamenti. Fuori dalla solita retorica è su queste scelte che si misurerà il tasso di ambizione europea dei singoli governi ed è su questo che anche il nuovo governo conservatore italiano si spenderà. Allo stesso modo valutiamo con favore l'attenzione dedicata finalmente al Mediterraneo centrale, con il nuovo piano d'azione richiesto dall'Italia presentato dalla Commissione. È tempo di passare dalle parole ai fatti, protezione delle frontiere esterne, approccio europeo all'asilo e ai rimpatri, ripristino della legalità per le navi ONG, investimenti significativi per portare sviluppo in Africa. È necessario infine un immediato riequilibrio delle nostre relazioni transatlantiche dopo il varo del piano di sostegno all'economia americana. Servono strumenti nuovi, poiché se la risposta fosse affidata alle sole capacità di bilancio nazionali, il trentennale che celebreremo a gennaio potrebbe essere l'ultimo compleanno del mercato unico.
Danke. Ich darf nun Frau Schellener-Sofko das Wort geben.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow Council meeting promises to be a historical one. Today is a historical date. 27 years ago, Dayton-Paris Peace Accord was signed in Paris. If the leaders of the member states follow the recommendation of the Commission and their own ministers on European affairs, Bosnia and Herzegovina will be granted the candidate status. That means Bosnia and Herzegovina is sailing towards permanent peace and stability. We forgot this country, but we were awakened with terrible war in Ukraine. And we have to really take care of Bosnia and Herzegovina to find a permanent peace and stability in changing electoral law and giving their old people chances to live and to be an anchor of stability for Western Balkans. This also turns us back with the discussion that the Council will tomorrow have on EU security and defence policy and implementation of the strategic compass. The current security challenges and the ongoing conflicts in our wider neighbourhood are a reminder that we need a more proactive and preventive diplomacy. We can learn from the EU actions in South Caucasus and avoid the mistakes made in conflict areas such as Sahel and Afghanistan. Member States need to step away from their individual interests and start building a joint capacity in external security policy. Thank you.
Herr Dan Nica, der Floor is yours.
Mulțumesc, domnule vicepreședinte Karas, doamna vicepreședinte Vester, domnule ministru Beck. Ne așteptăm ca acest Consiliu să aducă mult așteptata plafonare a prețurilor la energie electrică și la gaze, pentru ca și în Uniunea Europeană cetățenii și firmele să poată să aibă acces la energie electrică și la gaze care să fie bazate pe prețul corect, adică prețul de producție sau prețul de import plus o marjă europeană medie de 10-12% a profitabilității. Puneți capăt speculațiilor, pentru că această iarnă va fi grea și imposibil de trecut și de cetățenii europeni și de firmele europene. În al doilea rând, mă aștept ca acest Consiliu să poată să discute despre atitudinea pe care Austria a avut-o în privința aderării României la spațiul Schengen. O atitudine incorectă, ilegală, anti-europeană. Și mă aștept ca să-i spuneți foarte clar domnului cancelar Niemeyer că este prezent acolo în calitate de șef al guvernului Austriei, o țară europeană, profund europeană, și nu în calitate de prieten al domnului Putin. Și mă aștept ca această atitudine și să fie reparată acest vot nedrept care a umilit o țară și un popor. Și, domnule vicepreședinte Karas, vreau să vă mulțumesc personal pentru poziția dumneavoastră foarte corectă în privința aderării României la spațiul Schengen. Aveți mulțumirile mele și ale românilor. Mulțumesc.
Danke. Nun hat Herr Harold Wilimski das Wort.
Danke sehr, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren. Sie debattieren hier die Ratssitzung für 15. Dezember und da steht ja auch die Frage Ukraine-Russland und die mögliche Hilfszahlung hier im Raum. Und Sie haben die Ungarn hier sehr kritisiert, die das blockiert haben, weil, so hat es geheißen, hier in Ungarn möglicherweise Korruption vorherrscht. Und ich habe das Gefühl, dass Sie bei der Debatte heute die aktuellen Vorwürfe komplett negieren, nämlich dass hier über 20 Durchsuchungen im Bereich der Sozialdemokraten stattgefunden haben, in Privatwohnungen, in Büros, dass hier über 1,5 Millionen Euro in diversen Plastiksackerln gefunden wurden, dass dieses Haus und Europa inmitten eines der größten Korruptionsskandale überhaupt steht. Und das sollte hier Diskussion sein. Die Glaubwürdigkeit, die völlig verloren gegangen ist. Und auf der anderen Seite haben Sie es ja nicht nur bei den Sozialdemokraten, Sie haben es auch bei den Konservativen, Stichwort Pfizer, hier die Geheimhaltungspolitik der Kommission. Und ich kann sagen, das, was diese Europäische Union, ich komme zum Schluss, hier noch in eine gute Zukunft führen kann, ziehen Sie die Wahlen vor. Ja? Gestalten Sie Europa in einer Art und Weise, dass all die Probleme, die wir jetzt haben, möglichst hinweggewählt werden können und negieren Sie nicht das, was sich aktuell hier in der Europäischen Union an Skandalen manifestiert. Danke.
Um das Wort hat Herr Daniel Caspary gebeten.
Sehr geehrte Kolleginnen und Kollegen, wir haben in den letzten Tagen erlebt, was es bedeutet, wenn sich die Europäische Union für Rechtsstaatlichkeit einsetzt. Wir haben erlebt, dass der Rat, die Kommission, das Parlament gemeinsam standen, und deshalb haben wir eben hinbekommen, dass Gelder nach Ungarn nicht ausgezahlt werden. Und sehr geehrter Herr Kollege Wilimski, das ist auch der Unterschied genau zwischen dem, was Sie gesagt haben. Nämlich bei uns im Europäischen Parlament, wir arbeiten solche Vorwürfe auf. Wenn jemand was macht, dann ermittelt die Staatsanwaltschaft, dann ermitteln im Zweifel Polizisten und es geht dann vor Gericht. Und das ist auch der Unterschied zu Ungarn, wo eben Korruption stattfindet und diejenigen nicht angeklagt werden, nicht vor Gericht gehen und wir die Sorge haben müssen, dass eben dieser Missbrauch nicht geahndet wird. Und genau deshalb ist es richtig, dass wir beides machen, nämlich hier im Haus die Vorwürfe aufgreifen und aufarbeiten, aber auf der anderen Seite auch sicherstellen, dass Länder, wo die Regierungen eben fragwürdig unterwegs sind, wie in Polen oder Ungarn, die Gelder nicht bekommen. Nehmen Sie das doch bitte endlich mal zur Kenntnis. Und deswegen für das Wochenende. Ich wünsche mir, dass die Staats- und Regierungschefs bei diesem Weg weitergehen, dass die Vorschläge, die die Kommissionspräsidentin heute auch hier gemacht hat, bei den Staats- und Regierungschefs eine Mehrheit finden. Ich denke, wir sind damit auf einem guten Weg, unseren Kontinent in bessere Tage zu führen. Vielen Dank.
Danke, Herr Kollege. Unsere nächste Sprecherin ist Frau Leitha Marques.
No próximo Conselho, as soluções energéticas e as respostas económicas têm que caminhar lado a lado. Precisamos de estender o mecanismo ibérico, que já permitiu a Portugal reduzir as faturas da energia das famílias e das empresas num valor de 360 milhões de euros, face ao cenário sem este mecanismo. Precisamos de pôr em prática aquisições conjuntas de gás para conseguir preços mais favoráveis. E precisamos de acelerar a reforma estrutural do mercado de eletricidade que a Comissão tem prometido. São as famílias e as nossas economias que temos de defender. É a saúde dos nossos cidadãos, que depende do calor das suas casas, que temos de preservar. É por isso que o Grupo dos Socialistas e Democratas está a propor um pacote de emergência energética, sinalizando verbas para o efeito no orçamento europeu. Desejamos que o resultado deste Conselho alivie o problema energético que estamos a viver, de modo que cidadãos europeus possam iniciar o ano de 23 com a esperança em dias melhores. Muito obrigada.
Merci, Mr. Bogdan, the floor is yours.
Excelențele voastre, membrii Consiliului au șansa de a repara mâine mizeria făcută României prin blocarea aderării la Schengen. Îi vor face altfel un serviciu cancelarului Karl Nehammer. Cancelarul Austriei riscă să piardă alegerile din țara sa pentru că valul de antipatie stârnit prin blocarea României se poate transforma în bumerang la alegerile din ianuarie.
Companiile austriece prezente în România, care asigură 7% din PIB-ul Austriei, adică 32 de miliarde de euro, fac deja presiune asupra guvernului de la Viena să revină asupra votului său, considerând votul profund nedrept. Întreaga presă austriacă, Die Presse, Österreich Zeitung, Der Standard, Kurier, ORF, până și cea oficială, critică în cor atitudinea profund anti-europeană a cancelarului austriac. Îl acuză că își izolează țara, că își pedepsește propriile companii, că distruge reputația Austriei. Și vă spun ceva, Herr Nehammer, nimeni nu a câștigat vreodată un război cu presa. Nimeni, niciodată. Austria nu a respectat altele normative ale UE și, prin urmare, încalcă statul de drept. Cetățenii austrieci trebuie să știe că din această cauză țara sa se poate alege cu fondurile europene blocate. Și încă ceva, Herr Nehammer, piatra lui David, căruia puținii dădeau o șansă, l-a nimerit totuși pe Goliat. Atenție la ce a spornit cu țara mea. Noi nu uităm, chiar dacă iertăm. În schimb, mulțumesc vicepreședintelui Othmar Karas pentru modul absolut european în care a procedat și pentru poziția pe care o are, chiar dacă contrazice propriul președinte de partid. Vă mulțumim, domnule Othmar Karas.
Danke vielmals. Das Wort gebeten hat Frau Christel Schaldemose.
Tak, ærede kollegaer, kommissær. Vi har nu haft det indre marked i 30 år. Vi har formået os med en åben økonomi skabt en retfærdig ramme for konkurrencen, en lige konkurrence. Det har skabt arbejdspladser, og det har skabt vækst. Og nu står vi i en ny global situation, hvor vi er udfordret fra Kina med deres statsstøtte og fra USA med ikke mindst den nye Inflation Reduction Act. Ursula von der Leyen talte også om det. Min opfordring her i dag er, være meget, meget varsom i de løsninger, der skal findes til rådsmødet og i kommissionen. Vi har brug for at beskytte vores indre marked imod at blive fragmenteret. Det er rigtig, rigtig vigtigt, men vi skal heller ikke opbygge for mange barrierer for en åben økonomi. Vi har virkelig brug for at sikre en ordentlig balance i det her. Så når I arbejder med de her ting her, prøv at gøre det godt og retfærdigt og åbent og fremtidssikret. Og det handler simpelthen om, at vi skal undgå et fragmenteret indre marked. Jeg tror på, I kan, men husk balancerne. Det er helt afgørende. Ellers kan vi ikke fejre de næste 30 år for det indre marked. Tak.
Danke, Frau Kollegin. Nun ist Frau Dolores Montserrat am Wort.
Señor presidente. Nos enfrentamos a grandes desafíos como la crisis energética y económica, que merecen una respuesta coordinada en toda Europa. Pero también nos jugamos el prestigio de nuestras instituciones y la fortaleza de nuestras democracias. Por eso hoy pregunto al Consejo, a la Comisión, ¿comparten que se rebajen las penas a corruptos en el Código Penal por esos mismos corruptos que lo están pidiendo? ¿Comparten que se supriman delitos que protegen al Estado frente a ataques a la democracia porque los que la atacan así lo han pedido? ¿Comparten que en lugar de fortalecer las instituciones y garantizar la independencia del Tribunal Constitucional se cambien las reglas del juego para colocar a miembros de un gobierno en él y que así influyan en sus decisiones? Entiendo que no. Pues eso ocurre hoy en España con su gobierno. Afrontemos juntos todos los retos y amenazas que tenemos en Europa, por supuesto, pero no podemos callarnos cuando nuestras democracias se debilitan. Yo no lo haré. Gracias.
Dankeschön. Wir kommen damit zum Catch-the-Eye-Verfahren und als erstes zu Wort gemeldet ist Juan Fernando López Aguilar.
Consejo, Comisión. En las conclusiones de la conferencia sobre el futuro de Europa hay una que coincide con una vieja aspiración del Grupo Socialista de este Parlamento Europeo, acabar con los vetos de la unanimidad en cualquier decisión que no concierna a los aspectos constitucionales, valores comunes, Carta de Derechos Fundamentales de la Unión Europea y a la ampliación. ¿Tiene sentido la unanimidad en materia de energía? ¿Tiene sentido la unanimidad en materia de fiscalidad? Y, sobre todo, ¿tiene sentido la unanimidad para vetar el acceso a Schengen a Bulgaria y Rumanía? Celebramos Croacia, pero es una injusticia que se continúe impidiendo a Bulgaria y Rumanía el pleno disfrute del artículo 45 de la Carta de Derechos Fundamentales de la Unión Europea, la libre circulación. Y esa injusticia requiere una acción política. Y este Parlamento quiere apoyar cualquier acción política y judicial que quiera repararla, porque de otro modo estamos alimentando exclusivamente el euroescepticismo y la eurofobia, actitudes antieuropeas en dos Estados miembros. No puede ser que dos Estados miembros de 27 hayan vetado a dos Estados miembros que hace tiempo que cumplen los criterios técnicos y políticos que se les han requerido. Por tanto, es hora de reparar esa injusticia con cualquier acción política y judicial al alcance de la Comisión. Gracias.
Als nächstes zu Wort gemeldet ist die Frau Abgeordnete Michaela Šojdrová.
Děkuji, dámy a pánové. Opakovaně zde z různých stran zaznělo ocenění českého předsednictví a já bych se chtěla připojit. Bylo to upřímné a mě těší, že Česká republika v této těžké době pomohla nést břemeno Evropské unie. Je jasné, že na všechna ta dnešní i zítřejší jednání se díváme očima dopadu ruské agrese proti Ukrajině. To, co denně vidíme, jak Rusové dále útočí, potvrzuje, že jsme se rozhodli správně a že je to jediná cesta pro nás, i když nás dnes stojí mnoho, ale v budoucnosti by nás stálo mnohem víc, kdybychom takto jednoznačně nereagovali. Z mnoha úkolů, které vás zítra čekají, si budete muset vybrat jen několik, a to těch zásadních, kterým občané budou rozumět. Pokud chceme zlepšit bezpečnost, je třeba přijmout Rumunsko i Bulharsko do Schengenu a pomoci jim bránit vnější hranice. Zastropování cen dováženého plynu pro zlepšení energetické situace a podpora Ukrajiny nejen slovy, ale hlavně zbraněmi. Přeji vám hodně sil do budoucích let.
Dankeschön. Als nächstes zu Wort gemeldet ist Margarita Marques.
Muito obrigada, Sra. Presidente. Queria felicitar o Conselho pelo acordo tardio de há 2 dias. Ultrapassaram o veto da Hungria, podemos agora aprovar a taxa global, avançar com o apoio à Ucrânia em 18.000 milhões de euros. Fizeram funcionar a condicionalidade de Estado de Direito, obrigando a Hungria a fazer reformas, congelando financiamento europeu à Hungria. Parabéns, Presidência. Mas não podemos continuar reféns do veto e temos que estar atentos a como é que este pacote é implementado. É positivo ver o ponto das interconexões energéticas na agenda. E aqui destaco o acordo Portugal-Espanha-França, tão importante para acabar com a Ilha Ibérica, tão importante para a promoção, para o aprofundamento do mercado interno da energia e da União para a energia. Muito obrigada.
Herzlichen Dank. Und als letzte Sprecherin im Catch-the-Eye-Verfahren Maria Grapini.
Mulțumesc, doamna președintă, doamna comisar, stimați colegi. Tema de astăzi, criza energetică și efectele, războiul, securitatea, relațiile transatlantice, toate duc efecte spre cetățean. Dar recunosc că sunt surprinsă că pe ordinea de zi a Consiliului din 15 decembrie nu apare și această problemă care trenează de 11 ani, și anume discuția legată de votul absolut aberant și neacoperitor juridic al Austriei, de fapt al cancelarului, nu a cetățenilor din Austria. De aceea vă rog, doamna comisar, pe dumneavoastră, președinția cehă, insistați să se reia acest vot care nu este acoperit juridic. Și mulțumesc colegilor și președintelui Comisiei LIBE și tuturor colegilor care au semnat o scrisoare pe care am dorit să o transmitem Comisiei Europene ca semnal că trebuie să urgentați procedurile de modificare a tratatului, să scăpăm de această unanimitate care blochează tot ce muncim noi aici în Parlamentul European. Sper ca România și Bulgaria să intre cât mai rapid, și asta însemnând imediat ce începem anul viitor în Schengen, pentru că este dreptul lor și piața unică nu este piață unică, este o piață fragmentată și în acest context nu putem avea competitivitate. Vă mulțumesc!
Herzlichen Dank. Und nun ersuche ich Margarete Vestager, Exekutiv-Vizepräsidentin im Namen der Kommission, nochmals zu uns zu sprechen. Bitte.
Vielen Dank, Frau Vorsitzende. It has been a very interesting debate. I think it has been comforting for everyone listening to hear the very, very sharp condemnation of the corruption. And I think it's really important that that is being said. As speakers have said it today as the first sentence, showing the willingness to take action. Because people should know that this House is not a corrupt House, that the European institutions are not corrupt institutions. I think that is absolutely essential. Also for voters, for citizens as such, to appreciate the results that has been achieved. It is really, really impressive how this House has answered the calls from all of Europe in order to pass legislation that will change reality on ground. So I want to congratulate you on these results in these last weeks and days before Christmas, that the House shows we listen and we deliver. I also hear and feel the disappointment over the discussions over Schengen and the decisions taken there. As you will know from the Commission side, we were ready with a full recommendation, having followed very closely the preparation, the changes, the reforms in the countries that were ready to join. Of course, we will keep working for a full result, for a full Schengen area that can serve European citizens as the Schengen area should serve citizens. Then maybe to what I hope and what the President also presented in her speech, the focus on where we are as Europeans. Because a lot of work this year has been dealing with the question of the energy prices. And I do appreciate and share the empathy shown by so many speakers of the difficulties in some families to heat their homes. The thing is that in everything we do to tackle the urgency, we need to make sure that we keep a direction for a Europe that is truly decarbonised, for a Europe that is truly competitive, for a Europe that is truly inclusive. And part of that is indeed the single market. I'm really appreciative of the mention of that. We are now celebrating 30 years, first thing in the new year. That single market needs to be continuously nurtured, tended, cleaned up in order to make sure that every business, every citizen can make the most of it. And the paradox, of course, is that even in crisis, even with our emergency measures, we need the fundamentals to work. And the single market is part of our fundamentals. And the second of our fundamentals is that Europe is the most preferred trading partner for 74 countries on this planet. And that openness has created prosperity for Europeans to build welfare states all over Europe for decades with no end. Things are changing. But we should not let go of the fundamentals, our ambitions when it comes to cleaning up Europe, for the Green Deal to be our growth strategy, for the single market to help us out, for Europe to be a continent that works with others. The changes that we are presenting, they are changes that build on those fundamentals, but take, the context into consideration, because new measures are needed. We should make the most, and we will discuss that shortly, of the interpretation of the Inflation Reduction Act in order for European businesses not to be discriminated. We must make sure that businesses in the green sector, that they can be supported in order to compete fair and square with the same sector in the US. But since state aid depends on member state discussions and member state pockets and the depth of those pockets, it is really important that we press on for the third element, which is to have a truly European fund in order to support European industry for every member state and every part of these supply chains when it comes to green to feel included. And last but not least, to accelerate the green transition. Because the only real promise that we can give to European industry is the promise of affordable, stable, decarbonised energy to be provided on this wonderful continent. And for that, Repower EU has just been agreed upon. For that, I want to thank you. This is a major step forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your clear words. Und damit kommen wir zu Mikulaš Bek im Namen des Rates. Bitte sehr.
President, Vice President of the Commission, honourable members, thank you for your remarks and comments. I will convey them to the President of the European Council. To conclude, leaders will be addressing key challenges facing us this winter with regards to our safety and security, our continued access to affordable energy supply, and the strength and resilience of our economy. Some of you have expressed your frustration regarding the lack of agreement regarding the full application of Schengen to Romania and Bulgaria, mentioning the impact of national vetoes. We will have the opportunity to discuss the issue of vetoes later today, and I look forward to what will certainly be an interesting debate. Regarding Schengen, I should reiterate that completing the Schengen area with all member states who fulfil the conditions was a priority of our presidency, and we are very pleased that Croatia was able to take this important step. Bulgaria and Romania fulfil the conditions for the full application of the Schengen acquis, and we commend both countries for all their achievements. The Council will continue to work hard to ensure that we can welcome them into the Schengen family soon. Regarding the price cap, let me assure you the Czech presidency is working literally day and night, and we are confident to achieve results in the course of the next week. As regards the need to support Ukraine with weapons, let me underline, Europe is doing its homework. A number of member states have been providing military equipment to Ukraine since the very outset of the war, including my own country, which literally emptied its own stocks, and Czech factories are churning out ammunition for Ukraine at an exceptional rate. On sanctions, the EU adopted the biggest and most ambitious ever set of sanctions to date, and will continue to work on more sanctions as needed and as long as necessary. Beyond the sanctions, the EU will continue to support Ukraine with economic and military equipment. And on this aspect, I should highlight again the important agreement reached at the Foreign Affairs Council on the reinforcement of the European Peace Facility, which will provide greater sustainability to this crucial instrument for supporting Ukraine's war effort. On the international front in general, maintaining strong ties with our allies will be crucial, whether that is in our southern neighbourhood, across the Atlantic or Western Balkans. Here, I once again recall yesterday's Council's recommendation to the European Council to approve the candidate status of Bosnia and Herzegovina. President, Vice President Vestager, honourable members, today is the last day that I have the privilege to address this plenary in my capacity as the representative of the Presidency of Council of the European Union, and I would like to thank President von der Leyen, Mr. Weber, Mr. Lamberts and others for your words of appreciation. The Czech presidency is not over yet, and indeed we will continue together, working hard until the very last moment to make it a success and thereafter. But I would like to take this opportunity already now to thank you very much for cooperation between our institutions. We have together achieved a lot, and it has been an honour and a pleasure indeed. As from next year, I will pass on the relay baton to my Swedish colleague Jessica Roswall, whom I wish all the best. Meanwhile, I wish you all Merry Christmas and look forward to our other exchanges which we will have today. Thank you very much once again for your attention.
Herzlichen Dank für diese Worte. Die Aussprache ist damit zu diesem Tagesordnungspunkt geschlossen. Und ich kann Herrn Minister Mikulaš Bek gleich nochmals ersuchen, zum Rednerpult zu kommen, denn es geht nun um die Erklärungen des Rates und der Kommission Reaktion der Europäischen Union auf das amerikanische Gesetz zur Senkung der Inflation, unserem nächsten Tagesordnungspunkt. Und wieder ist das Wort bei Ihnen. Bitte.
President, honourable members, Vice President of the Commission, the topic of possible repercussions of the US Inflation Reduction Act on the EU has been high on our political agendas in recent weeks and months. There are concerns in the Council that the discriminatory elements of the IRA, which are designed to benefit US-based manufacturers without guaranteeing a level playing field, may have a negative impact on European companies. The new US legislation, even if not in place yet, is already having an impact on the investment plans of our companies, and there is a clear potential for a more systemic impact on the EU industry, in particular in sectors which are of crucial importance for our green transition. We are encouraged by recent positive statements of President Biden himself and the ongoing talks with the US administration. We will support any credible solutions that emerge out of these talks. But there is not much time left before the IRA enters into force. While the cooperation with our US partners in addressing the most concerning aspects of the IRA will remain important, we will also need to consider in parallel what we can do at the European level to support the competitiveness and resilience of our companies, the attractiveness of the EU as an investment location, and reinforce our ability to step up our green transition in this crucial moment. We will collectively need to consider the appropriate measures, for instance regarding efficiency of state aid and industrial policy, to decisively address the distortions created by the IRA or any other future measures that put our companies and the European economy at a competitive disadvantage. The US programme comes at a moment where high energy prices are already having a considerable negative impact on our industries and our competitiveness. The EU should be proactive and double the efforts already underway to extend trade opportunities for our companies and improve access to raw materials, in particular those which are of essential importance for the green transition. Europe has been very active on this front, with key agreements underway or just concluded, like the very recent modernisation of the free trade agreement with Chile, thus showing Europe's continued engagement with partners on this positive agenda. Europe needs to act swiftly, and the upcoming European Council will bring a timely opportunity to hold a dedicated debate on our transatlantic relations. Finally, let me underline that while we are continuing engaging with the US on the IRA, our strategic partnership remains stronger than ever, as the ongoing Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine shows the crucial importance of the transatlantic bond for our as well as global security. Thank you very much for your attention.
So, thank you so much. And now, once more, it's up to the Executive Vice President of the Commission, please.
Honourable members, thank you for this opportunity to present the Commission's engagement with the US on the Inflation Reduction Act. The competitiveness of European industry faces a double challenge. First, Russia's war and the weaponization of energy supply has led to an extraordinary increase in energy prices in Europe. As we just discussed, this is also heartfelt in a number of households, many. And also because of that, the dramatic increase in the price differences between Europe and the US in particular. Second, the US Inflation Reduction Act provides generous incentives for investing in the US, including in some ways that are discriminatory against European companies and other companies as well. The EU has encouraged the US for a very long time to increase its climate action, to do more. The Inflation Reduction Act is an important initiative to deliver on this, and the Commission is fully supportive of the climate goals that the US is trying to achieve with the Inflation Reduction Act. So far for the good news. Because the Inflation Reduction Act discriminates against EU producers and exports. Many of the green subsidies, they come with local content, assembly, manufacturing requirements. The effect will be felt not only by EU manufacturers of key final products to enable the green transition, but also their suppliers of upstream components within the European Union, including highly specialized small and medium-sized businesses. The Inflation Reduction Act is therefore a very strong pull factor to move investments and jobs to the US at the cost of partners and allies like the EU. This is counterproductive in terms of climate and sustainability outcomes. It's also a violation of international trade rules, but in a wider sense, it goes against the spirit of our transatlantic partnership. And we have made this clear with the Biden administration. Executive Vice President Dombrovskis and I discussed this in clear terms during the Trade and Technology Council meeting with our counterparts, Secretary Blinken, Secretary Raimondo, and Trade Representative Tai. It is fair to say that the Inflation Reduction Act was prominent in our discussions in Maryland last week. And as a result, we heard a clear statement from Secretary Blinken committing to address EU concerns, building on the comments by President Biden given a few days later. But they also contended that any legislative changes would be difficult. So what we need to see now is that these political commitments made by the US, that they translate into concrete solutions in the implementation of the Act to limit the damage as much as possible. And this is the aim of the task force, which has been set up between the European Commission and the White House. It will continue working hard with the aim of seeing results by the end of this year, because that is also the timing for guidance of the US Treasury to implement the Inflation Reduction Act. We already have war in Europe. The last thing we need is a trade war on top. Through the Trade and Technology Council, and in particular when you look at the work that we've been doing on semiconductors, well, we have shown that a collaborative transatlantic approach to industrial subsidies, that is possible. And this should be the guiding principles for these sectors, the green sectors, the clean tech sectors that we are discussing as well. While we keep working with our US partners to avoid negative consequences for Europe of the US Inflation Reduction Act, we need to continue pushing for Europe to become a decarbonized, low-energy price continent, and for that to happen as soon as possible. The attainment of the Green Deal's objective for Europe to become a climate-neutral continent by 2050, that should not be put at risk. The Green Deal is the European growth strategy, and we need to accompany our industries in meeting the ambitious targets. It's therefore of fundamental importance that the European Union stays an attractive place for innovation, for investment in sectors that are strategic to the green transition. Those are not all sectors, those are specific sectors. To facilitate this, just to face the energy crisis, as you will know, March this year, we put in place a temporary crisis framework. This enables member states to help businesses that face extraordinary increases in energy prices, and we have been reviewing it constantly to ensure that it remains adapted to the needs of the business community. But in the current context,